Awesome. Well, it's great to see you, or at least see the glare. I'm Brendan Burns. I'm the Corporate Vice President for Azure Cloud Native and Management Platform. And with me?
I'm Stephen Bucher. I am one of the product managers on Azure Arc.
Cool. And we're going to talk today about Azure Arc and how we're thinking about unifying hybrid and multi-cloud management across Azure, on-premise, and other clouds as well. So here are the key challenges that we see when we're looking out into the world and we're looking into a hybrid world. There's a ton of complexity and inefficiency in how people manage in multiple environments, different tools, sometimes even different teams. There's fragmented visibility. It's difficult. We were talking on the way over about how even just understanding all of the different versions that you may have deployed out to a series of remote sites or stores or other places is challenging and an important problem to be able to solve to maintain security and compliance, to ensure that when a CVE comes in, you're patched, you know exactly what your landscape is looking like, and even the act of patching, making sure that you have that everywhere, is incredibly important, going from cloud all the way out to the edge. And to take these challenges and illustrate them a little bit more concretely, we can take a look at doing IT operations for energy delivery. Obviously, energy delivery is a very hybrid scenario. Some of the things that's going to be happening are going to be happening within our data centers or within a public cloud environment. But obviously, the actual production is not going to happen inside of our data center, and the transmission of power from one end to the other is not going to happen inside the data center. And so in order to be able to deliver the IT and the applications and the insight and monitoring necessary to reliably deliver power from the place of generation all the way through the grid and out into people's houses requires a very hybrid management solution. And this is one that's been put together, and you can see the testimonial here. This isn't just sort of a conjured up example, but this is an actual customer who's using Azure Arc to connect their servers and their hybrid environments and manage it with consistent operations in the Azure data center. So Arc is that platform that can manage all of your workloads, wherever your workloads happen to be, and can meet your business or your area wherever it needs to be deployed. And we're really excited about whether it's public cloud, whether it's hybrid cloud, out to the edge, multi-cloud, we can meet your needs for management, security, and deployment no matter where they are. But this isn't really a product by itself. Arc is actually built on the backbone of the Azure Resource Manager. So I'm sure everybody who's here, at least I hope that everybody's here, is familiar with the Azure Resource Manager. Azure Resource Manager is our control plane for everything that you do with Azure. So if you interact with the CLI, you interact with the portal, you're interacting with Azure Resource Manager. But more importantly, Azure Resource Manager is there to deliver at-scale scenarios for things like access control, or for policy enforcement, or for inventory management and governance. All of these capabilities are available and have been used, hopefully by most of you, to manage your estate in Azure. But when you talk about how we can connect it to hybrid and how we can connect it to multi-cloud, that's where Arc comes in. Because ARM is traditionally been just for resources that were in Azure. But with Azure Arc, you can connect a server. I connected my servers that are actually running in my attic. I connected a Kubernetes cluster that's running on those servers in the attic, and I can manage it consistently just like I do with an Azure Kubernetes service cluster that's running in Azure itself. And so in order to sort of illustrate how this can be used for a variety of different scenarios, we have a series of different categories and demos to go along with each of these sort of acts or each of these ways that you can use Arc to help make your world easier. The first is to talk about how we can simplify operations, management, and security across distributed environments, whether that's servers in a closet, servers under a desk, servers in a different cloud. Then we're going to be talking about how you can do application deployments with cloud agility, but to an on-premise environment. Maybe it's to a retail store, or to a restaurant, or to any other sort of a bank location where you need to be able to have an application that is both cloud-based and deployed to that remote location. And then finally, we're going to talk about how you can do centralized inventory operations across multi-cloud environments. That's enabling you to have that consistent single pane of glass, consistent experience all the way from edge to multi-cloud to Azure itself. All right, so we're going to start with centralized management and security and governance. And what we're going to go through here is we're going to talk about how you can deploy, secure, and govern an application. And to show us more about how that's going to be done, I'm going to welcome Steven in, who's going to give you a demo on managing cloud and hybrid infrastructure from Azure.
Awesome. Thank you, Brendan. So I'm going to be an IT admin for our company 𝗲𝗲 today. And we have resources running all over the place. We have resources in Azure. We have resources on-prem. I mean, we even have resources running in Brendan's closet. So we have things all over the place. We have to juggle all sorts of different dashboards, different management tools, different services, scripts all over the place. You know, show of hands, how many people sound like this is a situation you're kind of in today? You know, you have a lot of, okay, there's a good amount of hands there. Yeah, distribution of these services and these management tools is a real pain. So I'm going to show you how you can use Azure Arc to leverage the rich Azure management tools that you can do and make things a lot more simplified. So let's jump over to the Azure Arc Center in the Azure portal here. And straight away, you can see that I have all of my different locations kind of categorized here. So I can see what's running on-prem with Arc. I can see what's running even in AWS, GCP, HCI, and more. So here you can actually see the machines we have running here. We can see their statuses, their connections. We have our Azure local machines. We even have some VMware machines all connected with Arc in a singular place here. So we can get a great view of what's running where straight away from the Azure portal with Arc. It's not just an inventory view. We can also operate on these by clicking these, assigning tags, doing whatever we'd like to them. But recently I got a new directive from my CISO saying we need to make sure all of these machines are up to date with the latest OS patches. I don't want to go to each of these machines and do that individually. Let's jump over to the Azure Update Manager here, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to be able to manage your cloud environment and your on-prem environment, no matter where they are, easily here. So Azure Update Manager, we've enrolled a bunch of these machines already into the Update Management service. You can see here we got 52 machines and 29 Arc machines. I'm going to jump over to the list of machines here and take a look at what has pending updates. We can see here there's a lot of pending updates, and we can see all of our Arc and Azure machines kind of together here. I'm going to select a couple here. Hey, even these ones here, these I-ones, those are actually running in AWS. So we can we can have patches and updates go from the Azure portal into an AWS machine and make sure we satisfy the requirements for keeping things up to date. So I can go ahead and create a maintenance configuration and call it, my schedule, and specify a date and time that works best for my business. You can schedule a maintenance window so that you know when your machines are actually being updated. And so this can be, during non-business hours or non-critical times. It's super easy to schedule it that way. So I'm not going to go ahead and do this, but simple as this, we can review and create, set the time, and it's easy as that. Security is essential, to a well-managed infrastructure, but there is also resiliency that has to happen on the edge here. Recently, there was a new update for some of the Safe OS and WinRE environments with Windows that we are able to now have dynamic updates to these machines in case there's any problems. I think a year ago, you remember, Brendan, there was this particular driver update from a third-party piece of software that kind of left a lot of machines stuck in a reboot cycle. Does anyone remember this one? Yeah, I'm seeing some head nods. Anyone was running around with the USB key? No? Okay, I don't want to admit it, so. Anyways, we're really focused on making your resiliency with Microsoft and Windows computers much better. And so with this dynamic OSs, you can now send patches when machines are in this WinRE mode. But the first step is figuring out what machines actually have the WinRE or the Safe OS mode enabled. And so we've recently published a couple of new policies here to audit and configure the WinRE environment across your Arc machines. And so this way you can apply this policy to your subscription, see how many machines don't have WinRE enabled, and then you can actually use a policy to configure the WinRE to be enabled across your whole fleet here. So I've gone ahead and done this already, where we have our policy assignment specified to this scope here. And you can see here that I actually have a machine that does, in fact, have the WinRE enabled here. And we can dive in a little bit more, take a look at the machine, and you'll notice as well, this is an AWS machine. So we can do this across no matter where these machines are. On-prem, multi-cloud, wherever, we can make sure that WinRE is enabled and your machines are more resilient to these kind of incidents in the future. But there's often times when there needs to be a break glass scenario. Not very often that this happens, but you want to be able to get onto the machines in this case. You need a fast and secure way to get onto the machines really, really fast. And so we've worked really hard on SSH over Arc to be able to give you a very simple way to connect to these machines without exposing a public IP and without having to do additional configuration on the machine itself. So with SSH over Arc, I'm in one of my Linux machines here, and I'm actually going to connect to it with Entra ID. We can, of course, connect to it with SSH key-based auth and password as well, but I'm going to use Entra ID here. So I'm going to click connect in the browser, and it's going to run this SSH Arc command. And you'll notice in this command, there's no specification for a key path. There's no specification for a username. That's because it's using my Entra ID when I've logged into AZ-CLI or AZ PowerShell, and it's going to check that I have the right permissions to actually access this machine or not, and then it's going to go ahead and do it. So as it's setting up the Cloud Shell instance, it's going to run this command. It's going to take a moment here. It's going to install it there, and then it's going to ask me if I want to trust it. Yep. And I am now on my Linux machine. So I can say hostname, if I can spell. There we go, we're on the SB-Linux 1 machine just like that. And I didn't have to expose any public IP, I didn't have to do any additional configuration on the machine, it was super fast and easy. Brendan was talking about earlier, we have a lot of management tools in Azure. Today, you kind of have to go ahead and configure a lot of these across your machines. And we've heard from customers that it's quite a pain to do that. We don't want to be clicking through. You saw earlier, I had like 80 machines in Azure Update Management. I didn't want to enable all of Azure Update Management periodic assessment for all of those. And so we're really excited to announce a new workflow that we're introducing here at Ignite called kind of the machine enrollment workflow with machine management services here. So this is in the brand new Operations Center in Azure. It's currently in preview, but we wanted to show off the flow that we've created to make your management smarter, simple, and easy to do. So all I have to do here is go to the machine enrollment tab here. I'm going to click enable, and I'm going to select a subscription I want to enroll in this machine management bundle of sorts. It's going to load up here, and it's going to show my subscriptions and the number of Azure and Arc machines. If the internet was working. Who's on the internet? Someone's taking up all the bandwidth in the crowd here. Let's try this again. Oh, well, let me refresh it. Someone's really downloading a big package. There we go. OK. So here we can see all of our subscriptions. And so I'm going to scroll down here to my Zava subscription. And you'll see I have 52 machines and 37 Arc machines. I'm going to select this subscription. And it says I have the right permissions. I'm going to select a user-managed identity to do the jobs for me. We figure out all the dependencies that you need to enable a bunch of services to this machine enrollment flow. So we have Log Analytics Workspace. We can add some more security measures with Defender CSPM and Defender for Servers Plan 2 if we'd like. We're just going to go ahead and now we can review and enable. So let's actually talk about what services we're enabling here. So we've included a bunch of these services that this enrollment is going to do across your Azure and Arc machines very seamlessly and easily. We're going to enable Azure Monitoring VM Insights, which is a brand new preview experience. We're also going to be enabling Azure Policy and Machine Configuration on these machines. Additionally, if you want deep inventory and change tracking for your machines, we enable change tracking and inventory. And then, of course, as you saw earlier, we are using Azure Update Management for seamless patching and keeping things up to date. We're going to include all of that into this bundle here so that all 80 machines that you saw previously, they're going to have these services enabled once I click enroll here. So I'm going to go ahead and press enable here, and it's going to go ahead and work and add all of these features to these services. It's also a lot cheaper, and we've really worked to streamline this process rather than doing the a la carte version. So we're excited to talk about that more as it evolves, but we wanted to show the preview of that today here. So we're bringing all the management services together, and we're really trying to align to some of the essential scenarios that a lot of folks are familiar with System Center. How many people use System Center today? Raise your hands. OK, good amount of folks. Well, we actually have a strategy we want to talk about System Center. Brendan,
absolutely. So, I think there's a lot of people who've been using. We can switch back to the slides.
There we go.
All right, right on. There's a lot of people who are using System Center today for managing configurations in their on-prem environments. And there's a lot of people who are using Arc to deliver a lot of the benefits of cloud-based management to on-prem environments. And so what we are doing today and into the future is we're taking a look at the capabilities in each and trying to reason about, for example, Config Manager in System Center has capabilities that would be challenging to implement in Arc today, such as peer optimizations for updates and things like that. Whereas Arc has very rich infrastructure as code and inventory scenarios driven by the needs of at-scale cloud users. We want to bring all of those. Experiences together so that we can really deliver the best of both worlds for people who are managing both cloud and on-premise infrastructure going forward. Because we truly expect that into the future, there won't be people who just manage on-prem infrastructure. There won't be people who just manage cloud infrastructure. But the management of both of those services is going to be essential. And so you can see some of the illustrations of the various capabilities within on-premise and Arc-based solutions up on the slide here. But as part of that scenario, over the last few years, we've been doing a lot to modernize Windows Server licensing. And I think this is a great example of the power of Arc to deliver real value on-premise. It started with extended support enabled by Arc with Server 2012. It's extending out into Windows Server, being able to consume Windows Server in a usage-based pay-as-you-go model that's familiar to cloud users, but on-premise as well, or in private cloud. And then finally, being able to do things like hot patching and extend capabilities that previously were only available within Azure out to other environments via Azure Arc and the insights that Azure Arc delivers for us. And then I think there's a lot of other management capabilities that we are going to be bringing forward, as well as all of the built-in capabilities with Azure and the Azure Resource Manager that enable people to truly manage both cloud and on-premise resources with efficiency. To give you a real illustration of how this happens, I wanted to, I'm switching gears. I'm going to switch gears now from the management of individual servers to application deployments, right? So it's not just about deploying updates. It's not just about deploying security patches or understanding the inventory of your environment. It's also about deploying applications. And so with Arc for Kubernetes, we're very excited to be able to not just manage individual servers, but actually manage clusters of servers. And again, it's not just about us talking about what's valuable. There's a really great customer testimonial here from Delta Dental, who talks about how AKS, both on-prem and in the cloud, enabled them to accelerate their business. What we're really excited about today is to be able to announce we're bringing the Azure Kubernetes Fleet Manager to Azure Arc. So previously, Fleet Manager was available within AKS and was available to people to manage fleets of AKS clusters in the public cloud. Now you can manage clusters across all sorts of environments, whether it's on-prem or in multi-cloud environments. And I think a great illustration of the usage of this and the value of this is some of our gaming customers. And as you know, gaming is a very latency-sensitive environment. It's kind of an inherently multi-cloud workload, because they're going to deploy game servers for whatever game it happens to be as close as possible to the people who are playing those games. but they want to manage it all with a single pane of glass, a single inventory, and a single deployment target. And so now, with Azure Arc for Kubernetes and the Fleet Manager, you can manage deployment of applications to Kubernetes infrastructure literally anywhere with a single pane of glass. And to show us more about that with a demo, Steven's going to have a little look at how we do application deployments with AKS and Arc-enabled Kubernetes.
Sweet. Thank you, Brendan. So let's switch over to the demo environment here, and I'm going to show off a couple of applications that I am responsible for at 𝗬𝗲. The first one is our e-commerce website here, which is running in the cloud across multiple regions. And then, of course, we have retail sites. We have real retail stores that are running a point-of-sale service application in these stores to actually process transactions and handle these transactions for customers. However, there's a big holiday coming up here in the US. And no, I'm not talking about Thanksgiving, Black Friday. We are going to have to scale out our infrastructure to handle the traffic. We're going to have to add discounts to attract customers. There's a lot of changes that have to happen fast across the edge and the cloud. And we want to make sure this happens seamlessly and easily. And so let's take a look into my Kubernetes cluster, or our Kubernetes fleet here, actually, excuse me, that Brendan was just talking about here. If we look here into this fleet, we can take a look at our member clusters and see we have a variety of different clusters here running in the different cloud regions hosting our website, and then different retail stores in Chicago and in Seattle here. I don't want to go to each of these clusters, make the changes, and then deploy them out again. Things could go wrong, things could happen, and then we could have an outage in a region or even across regions as well. It could be really dangerous. And so we're showing how with a single pane of glass you guys can manage deployments from this space. I'm going to go into one of these clusters here, into my edge cluster, and we're going to take a look at the extensions. So first of all, you can see here we have a number of Azure extensions for monitoring, policy, to help us keep track of what's going on about the cluster. But we have this other extension called the Flux extension. And this is what's going to really help us out today. The Flux extension will allow us to connect our customizations and configurations for our application to a GitHub repo so that we can deploy out changes. It can see that there's changes in a repo and then do the work to make sure our clusters are actually in compliance or actually made those changes. So I've gone ahead and actually connected a GitHub repo already here to these clusters here. And so this is my single repository. And so my developer has created 2 PRs here for changing and scaling out and being prepared for Black Friday. Let's take a look at the first one here. This is the cloud one. And so here my developer has actually increased the replicas and also pointed this to a different application. So this is looking good. I'm going to actually, oh, I got to log into GitHub first. Don't mind me. Oh, excuse me. Oh, all right. Well, we're going to have to go ahead. Good news is she's actually already merged a bunch of pull requests. So we can take a look at one of the past ones here. And so we've merged the changes and then gone ahead and had Flux see these changes, and now it's going to go do the work on the edge, on the cloud clusters. And so she's also created a PR for our edge clusters. And so this is going to be a very similar experience here where she's targeting different application, different container images, and different values for increasing the size of the clusters so that we can be ready for all that big Black Friday traffic here. And so this looks great. We'll merge this, and Flux will take a look at it, and it will start working ahead. Let's jump back to the slides real quick, and I'll show you a little bit about what this has done. So here is kind of a rough architecture of what we've been doing here, where I have our Kubernetes fleets in the edge and in the cloud, and with the Flux extension, I'm able to connect them to a single GitHub repo, and all my developers can have a single source of truth for that GitHub repo. It's also great that it's in a repository because it's now auditable and it has rollback capabilities. So if anything went wrong with one of their changes, well, we can just roll back that commit and go back to a well-known state, no problem, and that's easy and great. Now, you might be more familiar with the Flux open source project. And so you might be asking yourself, why should I bother with the Azure Managed Flux? Well, the Azure Managed Flux enables ARM native resource deployment. So you can actually include the Flux extension into your infrastructure as code, into your Terraform or Bicep files. It's super easy to deploy out with your clusters that way. Additionally, we have improved security postures so that we roll out fixes to CVEs much quicker and easier. And then lastly, we have easy monitoring of deployments in the Azure portal. So if we swap back to my demo environment here, we can actually see that we are, with Flux, we're able to connect to Azure Managed Grafana. And so we can create advanced dashboards to monitor the deployments and the changes to the applications here. So you'll see here we got loads of all these clusters here, the versions, the success states and stuff, the compliance, non-compliant stuff. Everything that we need is all kind of here like that. And so now if I actually go back and kind of refresh the page, you can see, oh, it's already changed here. The Black Friday discounts were applied to my edge cluster here. Previously, we didn't have the Black Friday discount banner, and you can see all the prices and stuff for the boots have been slashed. We're super ready and excited for Black Friday to come as a business here. So this is a little bit about how we've been consolidating application management across the cloud and the edge with Kubernetes. Let's jump over and talk a little bit about our other key area of investment, which is multi-cloud.
Cool. All right, so I think one of the things that was interesting, we developed Arc initially because we were thinking about people who are running in a hybrid world, who are running between Azure and on-premise. But what we've realized in talking to customers and in understanding the way that they're managing, many of our customers aren't just hybrid between a public cloud and an on-premise data center or a private cloud. They're actually they're hybrid because they're multi-cloud. And there's a lot of different reasons, whether it's regulatory or resiliency or just freedom and flexibility or being near to a customer from a network latency perspective, that people might be in multiple clouds. But obviously, there are certain things that this makes much, much more painful. And a lot of them are the capabilities that Arc brings to the table. So centralized identity management, inventory. You don't want to have to be going through multiple dashboards to determine if you have a vulnerable machine or if the patches have been applied. If you have applications that are deployed into multiple clouds, you want to be able to seamlessly perform updates across those applications. There's a lot of value that comes from that single pane of glass for managing applications. And then finally, you can also use the exact same tools, whether it's Defender or Azure Monitor or Update Manager, to provide consistency in your operations. You don't have to have 3 different operations teams for 3 different clouds. You can centralize operations in a single infrastructure as code language and in a single experience, a single portal, and a single API. So this is really, really powerful for a lot of people who find themselves needing to deploy into all these different environments. And to illustrate exactly what that looks like, I'm going to hand back over to Stephen to give a demo of multi-cloud management using Azure Arc.
Sweet. Yeah, so how many people here run a multi-cloud environment? Just rough show of hands. Yeah, it's becoming a bigger thing nowadays, and becoming multi-cloud, like I said in the beginning, it's hard to juggle everything. And so we're really trying to unify things for you in Azure so you can have a single management place for these tools here. So let's jump over to the Azure Arc view here. And so, I don't really want to be jumping through consoles, different, AWS, GCP, Azure stuff. I want everything in one place. Like I said in the beginning, starting off, I got to know what I'm managing and where it is. And so the multi-cloud connector is what is going to help and make our lives so much easier now. The multi-cloud connector is a resource in Azure here that will actually connect us to AWS and GCP in a way that we can see and replicate the resources in those clouds in Azure, in the Azure Resource Manager, and so you can treat them like kind of Azure resources that way. So let's go ahead and actually create one. So I've gone ahead and started the creation of an AWS connector here. I've selected my resource group, gave it my connector name, and then down here, I can connect it to AWS with a couple different kinds of ways. The first way is through a single account. And so the single account can be thought of very similar to a subscription in Azure, but for AWS. Or if I want a much more broader capturing of resources in AWS, I can use the organizational account. And that is like a tenant in Azure, just to connect the dots here a little bit. All I have to do is provide my AWS ID number, which I've copied already here, and then I'm going to click Next. So here is where I get to select solutions. Now, solutions are what the multi-cloud connector is kind of built to do. And so the first one here is inventory. I'm going to select Add here. And so this is an agentless solution that will use the authentication in AWS to pull in those resources and replicate them in Azure ARM, or Azure Resource Management. And so in the settings here, we can select the different services we want. We have over 44 different AWS services, which equates out to about 125 plus resource types that will be shown in Azure. So we can cover not just your machines, but your other specialized workloads that might be running in AWS. We also have periodic sync. And so every hour we can set it to scan AWS and check for new resources. This way, in case there's new resources that are created later, it will get caught up and you'll be able to see it populate within Azure, no problem. We can also filter it by region if we really want. I'm going to just say we support all of those regions. We're going to go there. And the next solution is the Arc onboarding solution. You saw earlier how I was doing a bunch of management tasks on my Arc machines running in Azure. Well, this is what did the work for me. I didn't actually have to go into AWS and install the agents on all those Arc machines. All I had to do was add this solution here, and it's going to discover all EC2 instances in AWS and install the Arc agent immediately. Additionally, it's also got a scanner. So if there's new EC2 instances, those will automatically get captured and shown into Arc there. So you're really not losing new things that are created. You really have a grasp and a handle on the inventory of what's been going on across your multi-cloud world. So I'm going to just hit Save here. And then the last one is a brand new one that we're excited to announce here at Ignite, which is the Storage Mover solution. This allows you to actually move your data from S3 into a Azure container very quick and easily. So I'll show that one as well too, but I'm going to add this all. I'm going to click Next here. Now the next step I have to do is download this CloudFormation template and deploy it into AWS, and then I'll have all the proper permissions. Once that's done, it's going to take a look, it's going to process, see everything that I have in AWS, and then bring that into Azure. And so that takes a little time, so for the sake of time, I've actually done so already. So I can go into my Arc Center here, my multi-cloud connector, and then I can go into my AWS connector here, where I can see kind of everything that I want. I can scan now, test permissions, delete it. I can take a look at all the resources that it's found here graphically in this page here. But since it's in Azure Resource Management, we can actually query it with Azure Resource Graph. So let's jump over to this page here. And what I'm doing here, let me zoom in a bit. Oh, there we go. So what I'm doing here is I can actually create a query to see how many resources and of what kind I want here. So let me do this one here. It's going to execute this query. And then look at that. I'm able to see the resource type, the resource count, and what cloud it's in. So you can see I have quite a bit of virtual machines. I also have quite a bit of machine extensions, EC2 subnets. I have network interfaces, EC2 service groups. So you can see that we're not just helping you with your AWS machines, but any other AWS resource kind of within this space here. So we can see a whole count here. You can see AWS. I think I have some GCP here too. It might be a little, yeah, there we go. Some cloud functions from GCP, public cloud connectors, and there we go there. So We can also do some more fun things with ARG. We can filter by OS details for the machines that we have. So I can, if I'm ever asked a question, hey, what Windows machines do I have running in our infrastructure here? We can go to ARG, create a query, and actually say, I want to see where OS details contains Windows. I can see where all my Windows machines might be running, whether it be an on-prem hybrid, in Azure, in AWS too. We can see all the details that we want about these machines very easily, so we can create quick reports out and make sure that we know, what's going on where. The best part too, with it being in ARG, is we can also create awesome dashboards. So we can create customized dashboards with ARG in Azure Dashboards and actually have a quick view that will always be updated and take a look at anything that you'd like to query by. We right now have machines by environment, Kubernetes clusters by environment, storage accounts, all these different things here with AWS and GCP together here. And so showing a little bit, we also have, of course, the GCP connector for connecting to GCP. We can do the exact same thing where we just have to provide the project ID and then the project number. Right now, we have the two solutions, the inventory and the Arc solution, but this is a brand new thing that we've announced. So definitely, if you have GCP, give this a try. Let us know what you think. We're really excited to be announcing that here at Ignite. Cool. So the last solution I wanted to show off was the storage mover solution for AWS. And so once I create a storage mover solution for my connector here, it's going to go ahead and actually create me a storage mover resource. I'm going to then be able to start a job here. Let me see if this will refresh here. I'm going to start this job here, and it's going to let me specify what storage accounts I want to connect to. I can specify what S3 bucket I want to move to what Azure container I want to specify to here. So here, I have very important asset backups in AWS right now. You can see here I have my 𝗲𝗲 asset backups for 2023, 2024, 2025, whatever. These are all very important files that I want to move across clouds here. And so the job has started. It's going to run. It just completed a little bit ago. And so here is my container that I told it to go to here. And so there's nothing in it just yet. But if I refresh the page, the job should have completed while I was talking, and boom, there we go. The asset backups are now in Azure. Just like a couple clicks, the job starts, it goes through the storage account, brings and copies all the files from AWS into Azure very quick and easily here. But we've been talking a lot about multi-cloud, servers, Kubernetes. There's a lot of stuff that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet, but we're really excited to share about. Why don't we jump back to the slides here, and we'll talk a little bit more about what else is new.
Sure. So in Arc, these are the various things that we've done. The team is constantly listening to the customers and constantly trying to deliver new features and new functionality. So we've added things like auto upgrade, which will enable you to more easily ensure that your agents are up to date and you don't get caught by vulnerability scanners. It's cruelly ironic if you're using Arc to improve the security posture of your machines, and yet the security scanner is flagging the Arc agent itself. So auto upgrade for the agent will help ensure that we always have the latest patches applied to the agent. We've added machine configuration, added features to machine configuration, customizable baselines so that you can set up a baseline policy for what you want your machines to be looking like. I'm really excited, actually, about the Windows Server 2025 recovery environment configuration through policy and the connections that will enable. I don't want anyone in this room to have to run around with a USB stick ever again to patch a machine. And with WinRE plus Arc, that's possible. And of course, it's only actually possible if you actually get it turned on. And so this is going to enable everybody to both audit and turn on at scale. So I strongly encourage, if you have any amount of Windows Server out there, first of all, get it to 2025. Second of all, enable 𝗦𝗲𝗀 plus Arc, and you will no longer have to have your USB stick and an army of people to run around through the halls of a hospital or an airport or a train station or wherever, probably this conference center, wherever there are those sorts of servers deployed into on-premise environments. With Arc-enabled Kubernetes, we've got the ability to access other resources using workload identity that provides an Entra ID down into the clusters that you can use that's independent of your own identity that you can use for accessing various resources. We've got offline access for secrets so that you don't have to necessarily have a cluster online all the time in order to be able to access secrets. We're working on Argo CD. That's been a really major ask from a lot of people, is to have Argo for GitOps in addition to Flux, and so that's becoming available. And then in multi-cloud management, we talked about how we have Google Cloud Platform support in preview, and we have AWS S3 to storage. We saw a really great demo of that, and we'll continue to add new capabilities in multi-cloud as we truly want Azure to be the best place to manage your cloud environment wherever your cloud environment happens to be running.
Yeah. And we actually, you might be asking yourself, where can I go to learn about all this stuff? Well, we've posted a really in-depth, comprehensive blog showcasing all this stuff. And actually, if we switch back to the demo slides at this aka.ms link, I'll pause here for a moment so you guys can take a picture or whatever. But we want to make sure that you guys are coming to this conference to learn about stuff that you can take away immediately after this session. And so with all this stuff, we've created a very comprehensive blog here showing off all of the new things that we've talked about, as well as links to other sources and other kind of information that you can read up more about. There was so much time and so much things that we wanted to do, but so little time that we had here today just in this session that we wanted to show off. But definitely go to the blog site and go there and learn more. So we can jump back and, yeah, there we go. There's the aka.ms link.
And if you want to stay up to date on everything Arc going forward, I strongly encourage you to join the Azure Arc monthly customer meetup. This will give you an opportunity to interact with the product team, learn about the features without having to, come to, although we love it when you come to this conference. It will give you up-to-date features on what we're doing with Arc and opportunities to provide feedback about what's working, what's not working, areas that you want us to improve in both hybrid on-premise management as well as multi-cloud management. So check that out, and there's also an aka.ms link if you prefer it that way.
And we'll be boothing the whole week.
We will be boothing as well.
So, definitely find us in the Migrated Modernized booth. We'll be happy to chat more about anything Arc related here at this week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy Microsoft Ignite.